Hey guys, so on this channel we often talk about chord substitutions and we cover subjects such as secondary dominants, tritone substitutions, modal interchanges and more. We talk about music theory quite a lot, guitar theory I would say. So what I would like to do today is showing you 5 levels of chord substitutions. And we're gonna do that on a simple chord progression. We're trying to keep things as simple as possible. We're gonna stay in the key of C major, okay? And we're gonna play a really popular chord progression, which is the 1, 6, 2, 5. In the key of C major, okay? This is also called a turnaround, okay? And we're gonna do that using the 7th chords that you find in the key of C major. So the 1 is going to be a C major 7. The 6 is going to be an A minor 7. The 2 is going to be a D minor 7. And the 5 is going to be a G7. Okay. Now the positions that you use don't really matter as long as you're playing a C major 7, A minor 7, D minor 7, G7. 1, 6, 2, 5, a turnaround in the key of C major. If you guys have a little bit of jazz background, you maybe own a real book. If you've opened the real book and played a few songs from the real book, you may know that this is a really popular chord progression. But saying that this only applies to jazz songs, it's really not correct. Because in actual fact, you can find this turnaround in any genre, from pop to soul and so on. Okay. So now we've got the first chord progression, the chord progression we are starting from. Let's listen to it once more and then we're gonna start with the substitutions. Okay guys, so this is the chord progression. Now let's get started with level 1 of the chord substitutions. So the first thing I want to do is having a look at the 6th chord, which is the A minor 7. Okay, that's the 6th minor in the key of C major. Now what I want to do here, I want to create more tension with this chord, thinking about the chord I'm going to next. Okay, so what do I play after the A minor 7? I play the D minor 7. So again, if you're familiar with the channel and you may have seen my video on secondary dominants, you know that something that I can always do is creating the tension to go to another chord by playing the 5 of that chord. So in this case, it would be the 5 of D minor 7, okay? And the 5 of a D minor is an A7, because A7 is the 5 in the key of D minor. So that means that instead of playing an A minor 7, I can actually turn my A minor 7 into an A7 to go to my D minor 7. Okay, so if I do this, guys, instead of having my C major 7, A minor 7, D minor 7, G7, the chord progression becomes C major 7 to A7, D minor 7 to G7. So there is a tension when I'm about to hit the 2 chord, which is the D minor. Now you can think of this as the secondary dominant of the 2, so the 5 of the 2, or you can also think about the 6th dominant 7. What does that mean? The 6 because A is the 6th note in the key of C major. You know that the 6th chord is supposed to be a minor 7, and that's what we were playing before, an A minor 7. We can make it dominant 7 and get the 6th dominant 7 simply because this is the same as saying the 5 of the 2. Okay, so this level 1 of the chord substitutions for this turnaround in C major will sound like this. Okay, so now we've got our first chord substitution. Let's get into level 2 of the chord substitutions, and this time I want to have a look at my 1 chord, my C major 7, the tonic of this key. Now I know what you guys may think. You may think like, if we are in C, we can't replace the C major, right? The tonic. Wrong. We can actually replace this, and we will be doing it via a substitution which is called the diatonic substitution. Sometimes you may hear people referring to this substitution as the chord family thing, because you may know, guys, that the 7 chords that you get in any key can be classified into 3 families or groups of chords, right? So the tonic family, where the C major 7, the 1, belongs to, is made by the 1 chord, the 6 minor, and the 3 minor. Now this is because these chords share many notes in common, 2, 3 notes in common. Okay, so essentially they share so many chord tones that you can think of them as a replacement of each other. So because we already have the 6 minor in this key, I'm looking at the 3 minor, E minor 7. Okay, so I want to replace and substitute my C major 7 with an E minor 7. This would be the same as making my C major 7 a C major 9 rootless. What does that mean? Well, if I compare the notes of a C major 7, C, E, G, B, and the notes of an E minor 7, E, G, B, D, essentially what changes is that I'm adding the note D, and if I add the note D to a C major 7, it becomes a C major 9, that we often play omit 5, and I'm removing the note C in the E minor 7 that isn't the note C. So that means playing a C major 7 extended to the 9th, so C major 9, rootless. That's exactly the same thing. Now, you could think about this E minor 7 and plays a C in the bass, and that would be a C major 9. But I want to show you a position for the E minor 7, which is a little bit more unconventional, although you may know it already, which has the root on the D string, so on fret 2 in this case. So this is an E minor 7, okay? Like this. Now if I put a C in the bass like this, essentially I'm playing once more C major 9. But you may already be familiar with this position that I was playing before, which is a C major 9. And I said, usually when we play this, we're playing it omit 5. Well, if I play the 5th, I would have this note here. So again, once more, removing the C and adding that 5th, I'm back to my E minor 7. So you can see even better that this E minor 7 with the note C in the bass would be a C major 9. So this is all to justify that we can replace the 1 chord, the tonic, with the E minor 7, which is the 3 minor. Okay, so now our chord progression, which already included an A7 going to the D minor 7, starts from the E minor 7, and it goes E minor 7 to A7, D minor 7 to G7. So what have we got now in this level 2 of the chord substitutions? We've got a double 2-5, one whole step apart. So I've got a 2-5 here when I play E minor 7 to A7, and I've got a 2-5 here. Okay, obviously this is only because I want to look at it this way, right? I want to imagine that this is a 2-5 in the key of D, as well as this is a 2-5 in the key of C, but I'm still in the key of C, okay? And this is actually a 3 minor 7, which replaces the 1 using the diatonic substitution. This is a 6-7 or 5-7 of the 2, secondary dominant of the 2, and this is still my 2 minor 7 and my 5-7 dominant. So let's listen to this level 2. Okay, and now guys, we are ready for the level 3. Now in this level 3, I want to look at my 2 chord, the D minor 7, because we haven't touched it yet, but I want to make it a dominant 7th chord. Why is that? Well, essentially because if I make it a dominant 7th chord, that becomes the 5 of the 5 of the G7. So the secondary dominant to go to my G7, which is also regarded as the primary dominant in this key. Okay, it's the same concept as what we did with the A7 going to the D minor. Okay, so now instead of having my D minor 7 anymore, I've got a D7 which goes to my G7. So there is now what we also call a cycle of dominance, you know, when you have several dominant 7 chords in a row, okay, where each dominant 7th is the 5 of the chord you're going to. So my A7 is the secondary dominant of my D, and my D7 is my secondary dominant of G, and my G7 is obviously the primary dominant, the 5 of the key, going back eventually to C major 7, okay? So now that we've got 3 dominant 7 chords in this chord progression, let's listen to this level 3. Okay, quite different, I would say, from the original 165 in the key of C major. And we're only at level number 3. Stay with me for level 4 and 5, because they will blow your mind. And all of the transcriptions for the tabs and music notations with the diagrams and the theory analysis of all of these levels, as always guys, will be on my Patreon page. So visit my Patreon if you want to support the channel and get access to extra material, okay? So now, what else can we do? We've talked about the 1, we've replaced the 1, we've replaced the 6, we've replaced the 2. So what's next now in level 4? So in the level number 4, we are gonna add another secondary dominant. But this time we're gonna combine this to another chord substitution. So I'm referring to the E-7, which is already a diatonic substitution or chord family substitution of a C major 7. Now I want to think about this chord, which is already a replacement like we explained, and make it a dominant 7 chord to go to the next chord, because guess what? If I make it an E dominant 7, it is the 5 of the next chord, which is A7 in this case, okay? So instead of having it as a 3-7, which obviously belongs to the key of C major, I have it as a 3 dominant 7th, which essentially means the 5-7 of the 6, okay? So now I have a bunch of dominant 7 chords, that cycle of dominant 7th chords that I mentioned before, okay, where each chord is the 5-7 of the chord you're going to. E7 is the 5-7 of the 6 of A7. A7 is the 5-7 of the 2, D7, and D7 is the 5-7 of the 5, G7, and G7 is finally the primary dominant, the 5 of the key in the key of C major. So now let's listen to this level 4 full of dominant 7 chords. How cool is that? And this is just the level number 4, and it's all made by dominant 7 chords. So now what else can we do in the level number 5? Well, we can finally introduce another chord substitution, which we talked about on the channel, and you can find the full, lesson on that on this channel, which is the Tritone substitution, okay? So the Tritone substitution, in a nutshell, if we want to spend 10 seconds to review it, is when you take a dominant 7 chord and you replace it with another dominant 7 chord, which has a distance of 3 tones, 3 whole steps, from the original one. Why is that? Because they share the same 3rd and 7th, so the 2 most important notes of those chords, okay? So where are we going to apply now a Tritone substitution? Well, let's start from the 5-7, from the G7, the primary dominant, because this is the only chord of the original chord progression 165 that we haven't touched yet, so we haven't replaced it. So what can we do here? Well, G7, I'm gonna replace it with another dominant 7th, this time a tritone apart. And what's a tritone apart of G? So 3 whole steps up or down. The note D flat, where I can play a D flat 7. Okay, guys. So this is going to be the same as playing a G7, just making it a little bit altered, okay? But they share the same 3rd and 7th. So now for this level number 5, because we are taking things to another level, okay, I would like to use only shell voicings, okay? And there is an entire lesson on shelf voicings too, which essentially means I'm gonna just play 3 notes for each of these chords, the 1, the 3, and the 7, so I just don't want to hear the 5th, okay? They're gonna be all mid 5. So my G7 becomes a D7. And where else can we apply the same concept? Well, on the 6th chord that we started from, it was an A minor 7. We made it an A7 to be the secondary dominant of the two. Now we're going to replace it with the Tritone sub. And the Tritone sub is always here, right guys? So if this is my G and the Tritone is D flat, this is my A, the Tritone is E flat. So I'm going to play an E flat 7, okay? So I've replaced my G7 with a D flat 7 and my A7 with an E flat 7. It's the same concept. It's what we call the Tritone substitution. I'm not gonna change the other 2 chords that were an E7 and a D7. I'm gonna keep them, okay? So now guess what? We still have all dominant 7 chords, but they have a different flavor because now they're all chromatic. So I'm going from E to E flat to D flat, to D first, sorry, and then to D flat, all in a row to eventually, hopefully, resolve on a C major 7 or C major 9, okay? Let's listen to this. So this becomes E7, E flat 7, D7, D flat 7. I can play it as many times as I like as a turnaround, and then when I'm ready, I can go to my resolution, okay, to release the tension that I've created with all of these chord substitutions, okay? Obviously, guys, you don't necessarily have to play all of these substitutions, or you don't have to do it every time, okay? But you can pick the ones that you like, and this is just to demonstrate how crazy things can become when you make a simple 165 into something like this. So let's listen to where we started from and where we are at with the level 5. Okay guys, let me know your thoughts about these chord substitutions, and obviously if you have any questions about any of the levels that I mentioned, and as always all of the tabs and the music notation with the theory charts, with the theory analysis, with the chord numbers and anything else you need to explain these levels are on my Patreon, so you can go there, download them, practice them, and at the same time you will support this channel to make lessons like these possible, okay? Anyway guys, thanks for watching, and I'll be seeing you on the next video.